Okay. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to say, Kalemla, Yahweh Shem Yahushua. To honor the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who will rule and teach well. So it's honest you brothers up there who are in Great Millstone, teaching out there on highways and byways, making your sit downs. Honest you brothers. So it's honest you brothers up there who are GMS affiliated members, and such as myself. Honest you brothers. Young brother here, Shamash One. Today I will be getting into Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 23 is the point, and I'll be getting into some history. I'll be looking at the interlinear for the word Caphtorim. And then I'm going to go to Genesis 10th chapter, so you see where these Caphtorim are from. And then I got a little blog post, which is actually, accurate for as far as I know, which is going to explain more about these Caphtorim. So we get some understanding of what's going on here. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 22. And as he did to the children of Esau, which dwelt in Seir, when he destroyed the whoredoms from before them, and he succeeded them and dwelt in their stead, even unto this day. Right now, the Edomites, although basically say he's speaking to Moses, and it's pretty much exhortation or a bolstering of our courage, right, by bringing up certain events that have gone around, right? And the Lord's making mention of these things, right? Look how these Edomites, how rose these Edomites to beat out these Horites and to take their land, right? How much more will I do for you, right? You who are the Lord's chosen people, you who are, the Lord's special possession. How much more will the Lord do for you? How much more, and speaking of the Lord's perspective, how much more will I do for you? Okay, and that's true, right? You could apply it to nowadays as well, right? To always bring in that modern day touch, right? Think about how the Lord brought in Amalek, and brought them into our land, pertaining to Ezekiel 36 and 5, and how the Lord used the British, and pretty much finance them, get them weapons, and pretty much be like their muscle man to get them in that area, to basically keep, the Philistines, those Ishmaelites and Turks that are in that land now, because the original Philistines are Hamites. These guys that are in that land now are like Turks and Ishmaelites, right? And pretty much the Lord had that all set up and rose up Amalek to get in that land and to beat these Ishmaelites and these different Turks, which are also Edomites, to beat them out and get that land, right? How much more will the Lord fulfill his promises that he made in the scriptures, right? That he's going to bring nuclear fire upon this place, stars out of heaven, and so on and so forth, right? How much more will that happen, right? So, verse 23, and the Avins which dwelt in Hazarim, even unto Azah, the Caphtorims which came out of Caphtor destroyed them and dwelt in their stead. So, and the Avins, ruins, people among the early inhabitants of Palestine, located in the southwest coast of the corner, Hamites. So yeah, these, let me see it. Let's see where these people are from. Aborigines, so yeah, these are just Hamites. Yeah, the Philistines, yeah. These are Hamites. Gaza, area of Gaza is about west of Judah, and you got Ashdod, that's around that region as well. And it talks about the Caphtorim, the Caphtor destroyed them and dwelt in their stead. Rest of these Caphtorims took out these Avims, and beat their ass and dwelt there. Alright, so what Caphtorim is Kappa, Kapth, or Kapatha, Kapath, or Kapath warrior, Capatharia or Capatharia, something like that. Capatharia or Capatharia, something like that. I don't really know. See Captor, which means here, which is, this one is Capathawar. I don't know, I think it's Capathawar, which means a crown. Original home of the Philistines, passed on the west coast of Asia Minor, maybe in Egypt or close by, or more probably on the island of Crete. And we're going to get in Genesis, the 10th chapter, which is going to expand more on that, because the Philistines actually come from these people from Capathawar. Alright? And I'm not going to reveal too much. We'll wait till we get to Genesis, the 10th chapter. No. I want to go back to where it was. Yeah, Cretans as inhabitants of Caphtorim as distinct from the Philistines. And as I said, we're going to get to Genesis, the 10th chapter, to, bring out more information on all that. Where do these guys come from? Alright, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 10. And I'll get to verse 13. Right, now Mitzraim, right? It says here, Mitzraim begat Ludim, and Anamim, and Labahim, and Naphtali. Right? The sons of Ham, verse 6, sons of Ham, Cush, Mitzraim, and Phut, and Canaan. Just so we know what's going on, right? So this guy's the son of Ham, okay? And Patrusim, and Casluhim, out of whom came Philistim, and Caphtorim. Okay? And that's where you get all these guys from. Right? So these are the sons of Mitzraim. Alright, Amatazarium. Okay? As you see here, Philistim, when you go into it, immigrants, right? That's actually what the word means. Inhabitants of Philistia, descendants of Mitzraim, who immigrated from Caphtor, Crete, to the western sea coast of Canaan. And that's exactly what they are. Alright? And actually, so that just tells you where they're from, right? And those Caphtorites are also sons of Mitzraim, and they were living on the island of Crete. What is Crete today? And they have that with the question mark, because they have certain archaeological information that comes out of Egypt, which shows that Egypt is Matazarium, that is their land. Those Hamites, they're the original inhabitants of that land, sons of Matazarium. And we know that they have certain things that is Matazarium, where it talks about they have I guess archaeological information that goes back to this land called Caphtor, which these archaeologists believe is from Crete, showing that you had Hamites in that region as well. I'm going to get more in that article, in that blog, but because I don't want to leave any stone unturned, I'm going to look at the word Abites. I'm going to see if there's any more things with Abites in the scriptures real quick, so give me a quick second. Okay, so I found this one. So Watson's Theological Dictionary from studylight.org. And that was actually wrong, so that's a good idea that I went out and looked for it, because it's important to be very inquisitive when it comes to these things, to look into these things. What does this mean? What does that mean? You need to have, creativity, right? The Bria spirit, Church of Bria spirit. So people derived from Heves, the son of Canaan, dwelt at first in the country, which is afterwards possessed by the Caphtorims or Philistines. Oh, Khan. So that's how they got in there. These guys are also Canaanites anyway. So I think I said the Avams were, I don't even know what I said they were. I think I said they were just Hamites, but now we know that they're Canaanites. Caphtorims throughout the Havanites, the Avams, Caphtorims throughout the Havans, who was in Hazarim, even unto Azza. And then we don't really need to get into the rest, because that's pretty much it. So let's get into this blog I found. Okay, so some things I found. The Avites. I was looking around in Genesis 10th chapter, and I was like, whoa, man, where are they? Notice how that article I pulled out before said that they were the sons of Heth, or the Hittites. So that's why they aren't there, because it just talks about the sons of Canaan, and then it says that that's the son of Ham, but that's actually a subset of sons of of Heth, or the sons of the Hittites. So the Adams come out of Hittites, which are just overall just come from Canaan. So they're just Canaanites overall. You know, they just call them a subset of Canaan, which are basically a subset of Hamites, right? And they were taken down by Caphtorim, or what was it? Capatharia, which are basically sons of Mitzraim, which came from Crete. So I want to talk about this. This is an article from rookandaluz.com. It's a little blog, but the information here is actually good, because I've heard it's a historical YouTuber I like to watch, and he mentions a lot of the same things, because that's where I got the idea to get into this. I was watching this video by this guy, I think his name was Thirsties, the historian, and he pretty much made a historical video on the Minoans, and that's where I learned it from. So there's nothing Minoan about Minoans. Don't worry about the first part. Humorism is basically the idea or line of reasoning where you take mythological information from these other nations and you basically take them as historical fact, with certain things within the myths of these peoples. Certain of it are facts, like when you come and think about Rome, about Romulus and Remus. Those two people actually existed. Now the thing about the great she-wolf breastfeeding them is ridiculous, but you know, the other things about them is true. You know, about how they were, I think they were co-rulers, and I think Romulus killed his brother, something like that. So let us stop calling the original inhabitants of the island we call Crete Minoans. It's a misnomer, if there ever was one, along with Canopic Jar, Amarna period, Pandora's box, and even Egypt, because those are not the real names, because they have names that go back to the original languages, right? Hell, even to call America, that's a new name, man. I mean, the scriptures call it Arshrift, which just means Arataza Akaraf, but I mean, the Native Americans that came over here, and Arataza Akaraf means just land another. Land Arataza Akaraf another, so just land another. That's how Hebrew works, right? Subject, description. And basically, you know, America came later on. They named it the America Vespucci. I think that was Pierre Rice who named it after him, or something like that. But yeah, this is just the land of the Native Americans, and even with that, they didn't really name lands like that. They just had, like, this is the land of I think they did with the Lenape, right? This is the land of this group of tribes. You know, they weren't really like naming stuff like that. You know, just dwelling places. You know. Here I humbly attempt to explain why we should abandon the term Minoan and replace it with either Caphtorim or some variation thereof, with the emphasis on the first syllable, as is customary in Proto-Asian languages. Crete was probably known in those times as Caphtar, same as Caphtor, which we were just reading about, or Capadar, or some similar variation. See how similar it is to the Hebrew, right? Because all languages come out the Hebrew. Tab is found in the archives of King Zebulon at Mari, dating to the 18th century BC, referred to Minoans as the Keftu, and the Ugartic text, the island of Caphtor. I'm not going to look into all that, but I might just see what Mari means, because I'm curious myself. Okay, so Mari is in Syria. Alright, so Mari, Syria. Yeah, so. Okay, so now we know that, so we pretty much get an idea. I'm not gonna get into Ugaritic, I don't know. I'm not gonna bother. The name Minoan was created by the famous archaeologist Arthur Evans, who managed to monopolize digging rights on Crete, because he saw his rule. Soon after, the island attained autonomy from the sultans, from the Ottomans, which are also Edomites, right? They rise, right? Albeit as a suzerainty of the sultan. Athens derived the name from the ancient mythological Cretan king Minos. Minos' infamy is stated into the fabric of Greek mythology by the blood of the Athenian children he is said to have sacrificed to the Minotaur. Of course, Minos' story is far more complicated than that, but this is what is most remembered. And before that, in his imprisonment of Daedalus, his ill-fated son Icarus, who fell to his son upon flying too close to the sun. Now, this guy Minos actually existed, and he actually did have rulership over the Athenians, which are, these are all Japhites, as you can explain. Minos is that he doesn't come from the Caphtorim at all. They're gonna explain it themselves in a few. As you see here, the Minotaur, that thing doesn't exist, man. That's some bullshit. Minotaur shit, that shit ain't real, man. It ain't. A fucking half man, half fucking ox or some shit. The scriptures talk about how everything is a seed after its kind, man. Including with us, man. Like a human can't breed with an animal. It's impossible. It does not fucking work, man. It's not compatible. Okay? So that's that. Even what Esau doing right now, fucking cross-breeding, species and doing it on the wicked level, man. It's just mixing things and splicing genes from different animals and trying to make hybrids. That shit's wicked, man. Everything's perfect the way the Lord set it out. Naming a right. So, naming a great civilization after one of the most infamous kings in itself, doubtlessly inequitable. It's a twist. If Minos existed as told in Greek myth, then he certainly wasn't Caphtorim. Here, of course, we must take a Hieronymist perspective, as Evans did, and consider the lineage of Minos. His mother was Europa, who, according to the myth, was a high-born Phoenician princess from Tyre, who was abducted, taken to Crete, and raped beneath a cypress tree by the god Zeus. That sounds like a bunch of baloney. More like she had sex with some dude. Alright, same thing with Semiramis. Bunch of fucking baloney is that it is, man. She probably did it with some random fucking dude and made up that bullshit. Europa became pregnant with triplets, among whom included Minos. Given the well-documented misogyny in ancient Greece, Europa was then married off to the Cretan king Asterion, who subsequently raised Minos and his two brothers as if they were his own. More like Asterion was the actual father, man. Come on, bro. But Asterion, even Asterion himself wasn't Caphtorim, right? Because the lineage goes to the fathers. They really didn't need to mention their mother at all. But they don't know anything, man. If we go by the chronology of Greek mythological figures, he would have been a Dorian, which I believe those actually go back to Japhites. Because you had Dorians, the Ionians, and different people. I think those are actual literal Japhites, man. Not like what you're going to read about, these Caphtorites, which are Hamites, actually, who were just in that land. They were the original inhabitants of that land in Crete. They later get taken down by Japhites anyway, it kind of explains it anyway later on. He would have been a Dorian because he was the son of a Dorian invader, Tectasimus, son of Doris himself, the mythological founder of the Dorians. When Astarion's father, Tectatimus, invaded Caphtor, right? So Japhites invaded Caphtor. His forces were accompanied by contingents of Aeolian and Pelasgian settlers, right? I gotta look into those guys. I think those are also Japhites as well. Archaeological evidence revealing the destruction of the major palaces on Caphtor had been dated to around 1450 BCE. Thus, from my Hieronymist perspective, it makes sense if Tectasimus' invasion was around 1450 BCE. Combining archaeological evidence with mythological chronology, only the palace at Knossos survived. Let's see what we got here. Give me a second. That one isn't that good. Give me a quick second. I'll just play this one again. There you go. That was just some songs from Berserk, the Berserk movies. So, the myths will speak of other invaders of Crete, though they weren't conveyed as invaders, but rather as special settlers of sorts. The three brothers, son of a Akkadian king named Tegates. The names were Cyclodon, Gorkes, and Archides. The myths say the three brothers came to Crete on their own free will, apparently unhindered by the indigenous population of Cappadocia, whereupon they established their own cities on the island peacefully. But this simply doesn't sound believable to me. Even from a Hermes point of view, here we must act rhetorically. At what point in history can we accurately and unbiased describe the peaceful, widespread settling of an island, of a land occupied by other people? We're just pretty much asking about it, but it's possible they could have dwelt peacefully. Nations did that between each other. That happens. Certainly cited in Gortius and Archidius, both CG and A, didn't simply arrive on Caphtorian shores, Belsa's inhabited, and simply subsequently invite the native Caphtor to come live under their self-titled rule happily ever after. The thought of such an occurrence is absurd. City establishment in foreign lands. We'll just continue reading on. We can read, but pretty much they're saying that as you see here, both parents of Minos are not Caphtorites at all. Which, I mean, technically his mother is also a Hamite, but his father isn't a Hamite, which doesn't make him an Hamite. That makes him a Japhite. Tatassimus' rule passed down to his son Asterion, and Asterion's rule because the sea lines to the father. And Asterion's rule passed down to his adopted son Minos. None of these rulers had any blood connection to the Caphtor rule. That close connection can be made through Zeus himself. Oh. Okay. Oh man, that's funny. While the earliest attested forms of his name stem from a Scythian linear beast, Sibyllic script, the myths say that he was whisked away to Caphtor, was raised in a cave in the Lasithi plateau of the Diki mountains by nurturing goat tending goddess or nymph by the name of Amathea. Which that's bullshit. None of that happened. Or there's evidence suggesting Amathea was of oh man, that's ridiculous. Caphtor origin. Maybe she was a queen or something. Maybe that's possible, but goddess, ridiculous, man. The fact remains that Zeus himself was not. So even by this avenue, Minos lacked any Caphtor lineage, because his father was not a Hamite at all. And all these people with dark skin, right? So here we see from his perspective, it is not representative to name the Caphtor after Minos, a king who clearly ruled Crete after Tactassimus' invasion, a king whose parentage traced back to the mainland of Greece, not known as such at those times in Phoenicia, more specifically Tyre on the coast of modern-day Lebanon. So boom, that's that, right? Those Japhites, they're not the original inhabitants of that land of Crete. They came in and they invaded that land and took it over. This could explain more about even the land Crete. As for the island Cappadocia, the Hermes perspective is likely had taken the name Crete from Asterion's daughter, Minos' stepsister, whose name was Crete. Boom. Right? That's where it comes from. Let me see here. I actually might just close off on this because I read this one on my own a few times, but it actually does talk about it here. At any rate, we see a reference to a peoples or place known as Caphtor, Egyptian hieroglyphs found in the Ptolemaic temple of Ombo in Upper Egypt mirror this reference. It also references the Egyptian hieroglyphs to a place or peoples the Egyptians refer to as Keftu, but I believe this is not the people. It is not in reference to the Caphtor, but to a sacred island in the isle frequented by both Egyptian priests and Caphtor priests and priestesses. But that's perhaps another blog. So, because those Caphtor are sons of Mitzraim, so boom, they they're the same. They're both Hamites, man. Or really, the Caphtor come from the original Egyptians, from Mitzraim, right? They're the same, man. Both come out of Ham. Or you can say Caphtor is a son or a subset of Mitzraim. That's more, not likely, more appropriate to say, like, and these both But the Zaryam and Caphtorim are a subset of Ham, you know. Point here is that there is no references to a place or group of people called Minoans, yet there are plenty of references to a people called the Caphtorim and similarly sounding names. I'm going to propose that we stop referring to the Caphtorim as Minoans, for there's nothing Minoan about the Caphtorim. Arthur Evans was a genius. No, I think that's a joke, because he actually wasn't a genius. He's actually fucking, you know, a dummy, you know, because he fucking Edomite, looking into all this stuff. But I mean, it's good that, you know, Lord has used them to bring out certain pieces of information. But at the end of the day, the dude was wrong, man. He made that name up, you know. He made that name up, and he did that shit on purpose, man. You know, because they try to, you know, make it seem like they're the Greeks, and he basically, you know, was trying to hijack that. Like, you know, Esau has hijacked all the Greek stuff. You know, the original Greeks were Japhites. He pretty much tried to hijack, you know, that land, pretty much cut off the history that it was actually originally ruled by Hamites, man. And they were all dark skinned, really, you know, but they call themselves the Greeks and make it seem like the Greeks were all Edomites. Man, that land was originally ruled by dark skinned people, man. Hamites were really dark skinned people. And then eventually, Edomites came. Whoa, that happened later on. Eventually, Japhites came over there first, which are, you know, dark skinned men as well. Brown skin, you know, variant to the color brown. Alright, same I am. Brown skin, variant to the color brown. Alright, brown skin, dark skinned people ruled those lands until, you know, then Esau came in there. You know, Alexander the Freak, all these dudes, they came in and they had their time to rule, you know, and then history played out, so on and so forth. But that's pretty much it. The one you brothers edify. Shalom.